Hello and welcome back to your property podcast. My name is Michelle Cairns, and with us today we've got Rhett Brewer from Property Filter. Hey Rhett, how's it going?
Very well. How about you?
Good, thank you. Well, it's great here. I obviously only know you through Property Filter, and the work that you are doing there is just absolutely incredible. For anybody who has not heard of Property Filter yet, where have you been living? Under a rock, maybe? Absolutely, everyone needs to be checking out Property Filter. It is a deal sourcing software, and we at YPN are in partnership with Property Filter. But you had a life before Property Filter. So tell us about your property journey and your investing and how you got to work with Property Filter team.
Yeah, sure. So, very similar to many people in property, I got my start really working my mindset. And that began with books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, of course, but also I was invited to a seminar by T. Harv Eker, Millionaire Mind Intensive. And I remember at the time thinking, what am I doing? This is crazy. But went along and it was life changing because it just opened my eyes to how I was being held back by my own negative beliefs. So that's how it started. But then, what would be the vehicle? And property, I'd always done relatively well at property, almost by accident. So I just decided not to be so accidental, and this time to really get some education, and had a kind of survey of all the different strategies, thinking what might work for me. And I was really looking desperately to leave my day job at the time. So HMOs, blocks of flats, called my name because of the passive income and this way of refinancing things and using other people's money. And so that's how it started, and really like a lot of win-win thinking, a lot of education. Mark Harvey and the Real Life Tribe, Rachel Knight with title splitting, I know is often in YPN. So, they were some of my mentors, and then just jumped in and going a couple years forwards to now, basically have six developments I've completed, 40 units. That includes 5 HMOs and 1 block of flats.
Oh.
And all really with other people, working with JV partners, working with investors.
Okay, so you went straight in for the HMOs. What was the day job back then?
Yeah, sure. So I worked for a very large US firm, Mind Body. A lot of people know it because of yoga, Pilates, you know, fitness, F45, anything basically wellness. That was a thing. So I loved wellness as a theme, but it was never really my calling. And anyone who's been in a kind of corporate environment, it can be quite soul destroying after a while because you don't have much control, and you definitely don't get the dividends. And I learned at one point that I'd made them £4 million in recurring revenue.
Wow.
And when I kind of looked at it, and I thought, if I can do that for them, why can't I do that for me? So
Yeah.
that's one of the drivers. And COVID actually was my best friend. So COVID came, they announced furlough and redundancies. And they were probably a bit surprised by the grin on my face because I was thinking, well, I have redundancy insurance. Anyone who doesn't have it, please go get it. It's £100 a month, might give you a year to kind of kickstart your journey if things go that way. And then property prices were low. No one was buying. So I was the sole guy on the train going up to the Midlands, me, the driver and the conductor, to, you know, buy properties. And that was kind of how I started.
Wow. And so in terms of HMOs, you obviously, I suppose, jumped that stage that a lot of people maybe fall into. But you've obviously just seen the cash flow and the aim therefore was to just replace that income from the day job through the HMOs. And do you mind me asking how many properties it took you to get to the point where you were kind of like, right, mission accomplished, what's next?
Yeah, so I'd say by around property 4 or 5,
Yeah.
I knew that things were stable. Now there's this income coming in, and you start realizing, well, you have options. There are certain countries where you could go retire there for say £1,000 to £2,000 a month. So all of a sudden, it's like the outcomes and potential options really grew. But then what I realized is that once you start in this crazy property world, which for anyone new to it, it is not for the faint of heart, but you kind of get a taste for it and you think, well, hold on a second, I could probably do more. And so now I'm working on some flip opportunities, some more like cash lump sum strategies alongside the HMO. So did, what most people do. You replace your income, then you go for lump sums, and then you go for the longer term assets. And so it's not that I don't like single lets. I think the challenge is that in 2023, it's much harder to make those stack unless you have the right strategy.
Yeah, agreed. If you think of it as a triangle with the cash flow on the bottom, for most people starting out, they want to replace the day job with the cash flow. And then, as you say, then they can go for chunks of cash and the longer term appreciation for sure. And the HMOs then, so developments, you're working with joint ventures, and how did that come about? Where did you find these joint venture partners?
So the first joint venture was with some people that I met through Mark Harvey's Real Life Tribe. And so I was very, very blessed. A couple named Haps and Rima who had done HMOs before. So I was piggybacking really on their experience. And I was the one who raised the funds from then a private investor. But as you do with these things came up, challenges came up, and
Always.
that's it. But you get through them. They make you wiser, and we're still on very good terms to this day. Hope to work with them again. It's this thing of getting out of the comfort zone. Co-owning something with people, the pressure of needing to deliver for investors as well. So that's how it started. And then I evolved from there really to just do win-wins with a few other people as well. And so I very much welcome that because it's a great way of leveraging me, but also other people in terms of just a lack of time, a lack of proximity, maybe to where the real deals are. And the lack of confidence experience to actually get these things over the line, because it's a lot of work, as you know.
Yeah. And did you swap? So you said there that your role in that partnership was to raise the finance. Typically, it's normally the other way around. People starting out find the deal and then they go to an investor to put the money in. So are you, is that your role in all of the projects, is to raise the finance, or are you now sourcing the properties?
Great question. So it started that way. And then my goal was always to do some developments myself. And of course, you get into a JV and you realize, wow, I could actually do this myself as well.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And so the way I describe it is it was a little bit like being in the cockpit of a plane. You're taking off, and remote control wise, you're setting a few other planes up behind you to take off at the same time, so that literally that first project was in the air, and then I had two other projects that were consecutively getting over the line in say about 4 months. And so now I've got 3 planes in the air, and you've got to land them because there's no choice not to, so a lot of pressure, but it also really pushed me out of my comfort zone because it just meant that a lot of responsibility, things go wrong, you just learn. And the great thing is that everything was done successfully. They all are still there, cash flowing beautifully. done and designed. So very pleased about that.
Right. Wow. Well, how's it changed working with Property Filter then? So how did you come to get involved with the team there?
Yeah, so I was looking myself for ways to get ahead, and I heard someone speak about property filters. So I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me sign up for a demo. So had a demo with Guillaume, and about 15 minutes into the interview, I realized, okay, this was really not what I was planning on doing, but he and I probably need to have a chat because given my corporate background and given my property experience, I couldn't think of anyone who would be better than me to actually help them scale and grow. And so we spoke a few times, and then I started in January, and it really began with that vision for how could I be smarter about sourcing deals, because I'd gone through deal sources and packages. That was fruitful, but it also caused some issues, and there's a lot of cost, because you just because someone has sourced deals doesn't mean that you can trust everything they say.
Yeah. And for the people who don't know what Property Filter is, can you just sort of run through a few of the highlights of the software?
Yeah, so Property Filter, it's a gold mining tool in that there's this huge amount of data out there. You have 30 different data sources where literally they're all put into one place for the first time, so that very sophisticated algorithms, AI, will then help you to spot the gold in the noise. Because if you're on the portals, the problem is really
It's all
they're
noise.
it's all noise. It's all noise deliberately, because they just want you to stay there forever, because that's how they make their money. Whereas with Property Filter, you can find amazing deals in seconds. Now, then comes the second challenge, which is, do you have the right education and strategy to match, let's say, what the market is giving you at the moment in terms of the best options? And that's kind of my role in helping investors and budding property entrepreneurs to figure that out. What does it look like in terms of, in practice, finding a deal in your area using these super advanced tools.
It's really quite something else. The first time I saw it, I thought, wow, this is got to get on this straight away. uh, the thought of going back to scrolling through Rightmove just was no longer an option. And we've had virtual assistants in the past where we're scraping all of the data from the portals and put it into spreadsheets, and this just eliminates the need for all of that. It's not just finding the deals, but it's the pipeline as well, organizing the deals. It's all live data. It collects, as you say, 30 data points there, so everything from the EPC, whether the property's in an Article 4 area or not, and heat map. You've even got the AI generated landlord letters now. It's evolving all the time, and it is quite incredible to see the pace at which it's evolving. How do you see, because obviously you've been in a year now, people who have been through the training and they've set it up, how are they managing to kind of find the deals with with the pipeline and organize all of their, you said you've got one plane in the air, but suddenly this gives you 100 just jets instantly ready to go. So you don't actually need that many deals, do you, once you've got them in front of you ready to go?
Yeah, that's it. It's life-changingly good in that it removes the biggest obstacle, I'd say, for most people, which is a lack of time. Because if, let's say, you only have your evenings and weekends to actually try to get ahead in property, racing around to unqualified viewings, it really just isn't going to help you get ahead. Whereas Property Filter removes that problem so that you can at least address the other problems. Do I have enough education? Do I, have the right strategy for my area? Do I have the right area for my strategy? Whatever the problem, Property Filter helps with that, to help you to really find what you're looking for super quickly, And then you have a new problem, which is that you have all these deals. And that's my current issue, is that literally I probably find 1 to 3 amazing deals every day.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, it becomes this thing of I literally cannot speak to investors fast enough, because when you know what I know, an example is I found a property for £400,000, which with not that much work, say about 70 to 80,000 pounds, could be worth £800,000, and
Wow.
found in about 5 seconds.
Wow. It's like kids in a sweet shop, isn't it? When you log in and you just see so many deals coming through. But that kind of begs the question, what makes a good deal? Because the software itself can't necessarily decide what a good deal is. You still have to put the criteria of what you're looking for in. So first of all, it segments the deals into which deals look like they've got the most motivated sellers. So if they've fallen through, how many times they've fallen through,
Yeah.
how much it's been reduced by. But then you've got the deal calculator, so you put in what your criteria is. So what deals are people looking for at the moment, and what makes a good deal, do you think?
Great question. I'd say that a great deal is very much defined by your outcome. And that's one of the reasons why I tend to harp on about education. For example, YPM's own education systems now, in terms of new courses and things. It's all about really ultimately just finding clarity about what a good deal looks like for you. Because let's say for some people, they'd look at, I'll give you an example. One of my investors, he's a billionaire, and so when I ran the idea by him of £1,000 a month extra income, he's looking at me thinking, what do I need that for? Sounds like a lot of work.
Sounds like a lot of work, yeah.
A lot of work for not very much return. It was his honest answer. And so, for him, my amazing deal wasn't such a great deal, even though he did in the end invest with me. I think more out of pity, because he could just see how serious I was, and that he wanted to help. But I'd say it's all about layers of understanding, looking at deals, understanding what they bring, understanding your level of experience as well, because that's another thing. You can look at commercial to resi, read an amazing article in YPN about how people are doing well with it, and then all you've ever done is rented a flat down the road from mum. So that disconnect means that either there has to be some education, or a joint venture partner, which is how I started, because I knew I didn't know what I was doing. So, why not work with people who did, and let me study it inside the cockpit rather than outside?
Yeah. You must have a queue of people who are looking to invest with you at the moment. You're on this thing all day long looking for deals. And do you find that you talk there about what makes a good deal is the outcome people are looking for. So when you're working with investors, has it changed over the past year? Obviously, the market's changed dramatically. So has their expectations changed? Or is it just a case of there aren't as many deals out there? Because that's the common, questions we're getting asked at the moment. Like, where are all the good deals gone?
Well, I think in a way, there's a misconception about, let's say, deals in 2023. I think this is the thing. So if you're chasing after deals that worked 10 years ago in the way that they worked 10, 20 years ago, then you're going to assume that there are no deals to be found. The reality is that there are plenty of deals. It's just that you're having to almost reverse the way of thinking and look at, well, what is the low-hanging fruit of my area? What strategy will line up with my outcome? A good example is like, okay, you can do classic buy to let. It's not that it won't work. It's asking that question, how can it work? And then becoming maybe a bit more creative or educated or both as to what that might look like. And I find a lot of people lack that imagination sometimes, but that's where property filter helps, because you've got, on the one hand, this amazing gold mining tool, comparables that will tell you how much a property is worth, but not in days, but in a few seconds. But it's not just what it's worth, it's how can you increase that value. And that's, I think, the thing that probably surprises a lot of investors the most at the moment, in terms of the need to add value, in order to make things stack, because otherwise anyone can take their savings and plop it into the property. But to get that money back in the next, say, 10, 20 years becomes a more sophisticated operation.
And in terms of creative solutions, then what do you find are the best strategies right now for coming to a potential deal?
It really depends on that outcome again, but I think, if you kind of go back to ground zero and you say, what are the majority of investors looking for? And that's something I feel very privileged, like you, to be at the forefront of that. You're speaking to a lot of people and you start seeing trends. I'd say sometimes it's the simple things that people don't think about. It'll be adding a bedroom, it'll be adding an extension, maybe rethinking the layout of the place. It's finding what's the problem. And if you're able to fix the problem for the property, but maybe also for the potential buyers or tenants, that tends to then bring dividends. Like, let's say, the work from home people. So if you work from home, you now need more space. But that space doesn't necessarily have to be extra square meters. It might be that corner of a large room can become another bedroom, or can become a separated, walled off area in some sort of way. So it's just looking at examples, training the eye to then spot the opportunities, so that then you're the first person in the queue, because other people, like the place that I'm currently buying in London, people had looked at it, thought about it, and then backed out when I walked in there. And before I walked in there, because I pre-qualified the viewing using Property Filter, to then know that buying it at £400,000, which was the asking price, there's a flat on the market next door for £770,000, and it could be worth 800, could be worth 900. I don't know, and that's the kind of thing that Property Filter can help you do. But then what I bring to the table as well in a lot of group calls that we run is to just help people see opportunities, because I think that's part of it. They'll bring their area, they'll bring, let's say, their goal. And then, I always hope to inspire people to just see the gold that's sitting in front of them. There are people up north in gold mine towns, and then they're thinking, oh, what can I possibly do to make some money? And, I'm the one getting on a train to go 4 hours north when they're sitting across the street from the things that I'm going to buy, right? But they just don't see it.
Yeah, it's so true that sometimes I had a project where it was sitting on the market. It was a block of 4 flats, and there was, it didn't quite stack, the deal. But the fact that I knew that there was an empty homes loan that I could get, which at the time was £25,000 per unit, and there were 4 units, it was a block of 4 flats.
Wow.
So I actually secured £100,000 of an empty homes loan. Now that made the deal, where if you didn't know about that, it wasn't a deal. So I think you're so right there, that sometimes, whether it's adding value through planning gain, or whether it's through how you acquire it, or any of these kind of creative strategies, that the really good investors and property developers really create a deal where there doesn't look like there is one, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about how many tools can you get in your toolbox, so that when you come up with an opportunity, you come up with a deal, you're really thinking outside the box of what can be done, and creating a deal out of thin air oftentimes, and whether that is through adding value, like we just said, or perhaps it's through negotiating with the owner. And for anyone who knows about purchase lease options, acquiring the property in a different way, where you don't need the mortgage, you don't need the stamp duty, and you can acquire the property and benefit from it and profit from it as if it's your own for a few years. That's certainly one way that a lot of people are looking at now. And is that something you're seeing as well, in people having more creative acquisition styles?
Absolutely. I think the penny has dropped for a lot of people that it doesn't have to be go to Rightmove and then go to an agent and then do things the way that everyone else does them. Lease options is an example of that. Vendor finance is another. I'm working on a project right now where, it's again a property filter success story, but I'm looking at this property and property filter thinking it has been taken back to brick and they're selling it at quite a premium. It's owned by a company. So all of this information was revealed in property filter. So I was direct to vendor. Then I'm looking at the name of the owner and I realized it's someone I actually knew.
Right. Of course.
So direct to vendor, potentially a great deal. And after a lot of conversation, one option, because they had that nightmare that everyone fears, where the wrong joint venture partner, the wrong financial situation, they bought with cash and had no oversight whatsoever in terms of what was being done, the wrong build company as well. So it's like everything went wrong. But now we're talking about, originally I was saying, shall I buy it? Now we're talking about, well, shall I step into the JV, let you guys finance the development, and then I'll just take the lead on doing the work, which is, a very different situation. So in other words, I'm walking into a disaster to try to put out the fire, rethink the strategy. And meanwhile, that will likely mean £1,000 a month for me forever. Wow. Plus,
yeah. I mean, the trick there is finding a problem that you can solve. Now, you've gone into that deal knowing that you can fix that problem. And that's the most important thing. Find problems that you can fix, and whether that is someone's situation or whether that's something to do with the bricks and mortar and physically, fixing a problem there structurally or whatever. But yeah, certainly finding problems we can fix is what we're all about, isn't it? Okay, so to wrap up, can you think of, is there a deal that you've come across that stood out? Perhaps one of your, one of the members of the software who's come across an amazing deal or something a bit unique and different?
Yeah, I think one of my favorites is an apart hotel where this woman came on to Helen. So then she came on to one of the group sessions and she said, Rhett, I'm looking for an apart hotel in the middle of nowhere, just outside of Reading. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be difficult. And so then, lo and behold, we find this building which had 19 rooms as is, with a clear path to increasing that to around 22 to 24. In other words, all money in and out in 1 year, and £50,000 of cash flow per month.
No.
Found on property filter in seconds, despite my concerns about the area. And it's that kind of thing where you almost can't believe it until you see it, myself included, where despite the fact that I'm showing,
you wish you'd spotted that one before, hey?
But the funny thing is, she then called me afterwards and she said, well, would you be interested in consulting on it and or being involved in it? And so this is the thing, property is very much, it's a numbers game, but it's very much still a people's business, and I love the relationships and getting to work with great people. And that was an example. She and I had been friends on Facebook for probably a couple of years, and then all of a sudden two worlds were coming together through a potential deal.
So what do you see next? How do you think, obviously all the AI software that's taking over the world at the moment, and certainly fast tracking people's success like never before, saving, as you said earlier, saving people so much time that they're really just focusing on their most important tasks, the most important things like working with investors and the negotiation side rather than admin. So how do the next 12 months look for you, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of more deals. So I'm now getting back in the saddle, having taken, a well-earned sort of year to just recalibrate after, 6 projects, 40 units in say 2.5 years. It was quite intense. So a couple of more projects, and Property Filter. I'm one of their first hires, really. So we're looking forward to the next chapter together. I think it's all really about broadening that base of people knowing about it. But I think also it's a mindset thing around, is AI going to make us victims, or is it the thing that's going to set us free? And it really both can be true depending on how you look at it. I think, Property Filter is a great example of that, in that they're working on something now where not only is it already writing letters for people, so in other words, it'll write a campaign of letters, but the next phase that they're working on right now will actually send the letters. So just if you can get your head around that, direct to vendor, motivated sellers, below market value deals, and then something that will just go speak to them. It's pretty incredible. I think for me, I need more help, so I'm looking at getting some more virtual assistant support at the moment. Because if you have a job and you're running a business,
yeah,
you have to streamline. So,
well, you get to that next stage where you need to buy back. You've bought back your time through the day job, and now you're buying more time to just scale up and do more. So yeah, amazing. Wow. Well, we look forward to seeing what's next. It's super exciting. And as I said before, for anyone who's not checked it out, we'll put the links in the show notes. And where can people connect with you, Rhett? What's your favorite social media platform these days?
Facebook is the general one. Facebook, LinkedIn, either way, it's good. And love to hear from people. Through Property Filter also now, who would have thought that I'm even doing coaching for people, just because there's the need. And once you've been through what we've been through, you want to help people save themselves some trauma, let's
Absolutely.
put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Save the heartache and just fast track. There's plenty to be learned there, and there's no need to be making all the elementary mistakes. That's for sure. There's a lot involved in working with property, so just set yourself up for success and do that with It's not like we're just working down at a local shop where there's no huge sums of money at stake here. So get educated is always the first step, and then put it into practice and have the accountability and that comes with the coaching, the mentorship, and make it happen is the next stage. So, well, Rhett, thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing to have you on, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely.
And for anyone who's not yet a subscriber to the YPM magazine, click the link in the show notes for your free 30-day trial. We'll see you next time, guys.